Hello and thank you for buying this online workshop. The first thing we're going to do is to put our binder together. So grab your two pieces of cardstock. I've gone with the blue, as you can see, but whichever you're using. And we want to join those together just with a strip of double-sided tape down one edge. If you're using textured cardstock, just make sure that you've got the two sides. There's always a smooth side and a textured side, so just make sure you've got those together or facing up the same way. And then put one strip of double-sided tape, I've used 1/4 inch, and then just overlap your papers. It doesn't matter if they don't quite meet at the ends. This is all going to be covered. And then the first piece of chipboard that we want to put down is our spine. Here. And that's going to go straight over our join. So I'm going to put double-sided tape on mine just to hold it down. If I'm using card, then I use the glue, but because I'm using cardstock, which is lighter in weight, I don't want it to ruckle or to be wet, so I'm going to use tape for this. But you can use either, whichever you fancy. Do I need to get the pokey tool? Oh no, we're all right. And position it. Just remember that your join isn't on the other side, isn't where you see it. It's slightly over to the left or right, which depending on which way you've overlapped your papers. So just offset your spine piece to accommodate for that, and then we're going to put some strips of double-sided tape on both of your cover pieces. If you go down like that, then the tape holds the cardstock to the chipboard. Let's do the other one while we're at it. I'm just doing 4 strips, which will hold it down fine. Right, now let's pull these tapes off. Oh, we're on a roll. We're on a roll. Spoke too soon. I'll do these at the same time and then we're done. So pull all of yours off. Apologies if you're watching me painfully pull these off. And one more. Okay, and the next thing you need is your shim, which is 2 pieces of the chipboard that you're using, and you're going to butt your shim up against the spine, take your cover, sticky side down, slide it up to that shim, and stick it in place, and then do the same on the other side, and then you've got the required gap for your binder to fold up really nicely. So line up your top and bottom edges and stick your chipboard in place like that. And then just down that gap I'm going to put a strip of, I'm just going to take it a bit longer, this is 3/8 of an inch tape, 3 millimeters, not 3/8. It just gives a little bit of strength. I'm going to take the backing off that. So I'm going to put 2 strips down. It just gives the crease or the fold a little bit of strength, especially as we're working with cardstock rather than card. Now if you wanted to, you could do this with your tape before you put your chipboard pieces down. Oops. Last one. It doesn't matter if they go, oops, stuck to me. It doesn't matter if they go further than the crease, or further than the top and bottom of the chipboard. And then I'm just going to trim my ends down, just so that they're approximately an inch away from the chipboard. And we'll save that bit for later. Let's turn it around, do the same on this side. So all these offcuts we can use. And then you want to go round the outside of your paper, start over here and come along. So all the way around the outside of your cardstock with your tape. I'm going to cheat and just stagger around the corners because we are going to cut them off. So save pulling all those pieces off. And the last one, so that's all the way around the outside of the edge of your cardstock, and then do the same again on your chipboard. And come all the way along over your gaps. Press the tape into your gaps all the way along. Now this one I am going to do in sections. Down into your gutter. And then let's move it to the last one. Like that. And then you want to take your backing strips off, but before you do that, you want to cut your corners diagonally. Now if you're not confident in cutting, use your shim, put it across your corner, draw a pencil line on the outside and then cut. Or if you haven't got a pencil, you can just fold up your cardstock and cut across. You want to have an eighth of an inch of cardstock showing, sticking out from underneath your chipboard. So cut all of your corners. Like that. And then we're ready to start folding the binder up. So let's peel off all of the backing strips from one long side. I like to work on the side furthest away from me first. Like that. And then fold your binder up and over to press down onto that crease. And then you can use your bone folder, they're really useful just to crease your papers. I've just gone off to get mine, so bear with me. Here it is. And you just run it, lift your cardstock up and just very gently run your bone folder up against the edge of the chipboard, and that creases up your cardstock, ready for you to fold it down onto your chipboard. And I like to start in the middle and just start easing towards one end and then do the same again, just in case you don't fold it over quite right. You haven't got to undo the whole strip. And then take your bone folder and just work it over that tape just to stick it down nice and firmly. You can use a brayer for this as well. And then turn round and do the other long side. So start your crease going by just folding your binder away from you. Take your bone folder, just run it up against the edge of the chipboard. and then start from the middle and just pull that cardstock onto the chipboard, working from the centre out, and then just press it down with your bone folder, like that. And then you can lift up your front and back cover, and you'll see the cardstock will start to fall into that gap, the gutter. Just help it with your bone folder or a ruler, just to stick down. So that's the binder. And now we're going to, that's the long ends. Now we're going to do the same with the short ends. But before we stick them down, we just want to push these little corners in. So let's take these strips off. And you'll see you've got a little triangle of cardstock sticking out over the top of the chipboard. Drag it inwards and squash it around the corner of your binder. You can do it with your fingers or your bone folder. And then do the same with that end. So fold it over. Use your bone folder to lift up and crease. And then if you've got quite a straight edge sticking up from the corner, just trim it back slightly before you stick that end down, and then you'll get a really nice corner. Smooth it with your bone folder, turn it round, and do the same on the other side, if you can get your tapes off. So squash the little triangle in, trim back if you've got too much of a straight edge sticking up, crease it with your bone folder, and then push it down onto your binder, and then just smooth it down again. It just gets the glue sticking on the tape. And that is it. That's your binder ready to have its spine pieces put in. So gather up those and we'll put the spine together and the pages in. So now we're going to add the spine mounts, and you should have your 4 pieces, your one with all of the tape all around the edges and across the top and bottom, and then your 3 scored pieces with tape on the flat sections. So the first thing to do is to take the large one, and you're going to stick that straight in over the spine. Oops. So take your tape backings off. Oops. Flip over. And this you want to centre. It's ½ inch shorter than the binder, so you want to centre it top and bottom so that you've got 1/4 inch, because this is going to be 1/4 inch of the cover showing underneath. This is going to be the guide for the pages to go in. So you could draw yourself a line if you feel more comfortable doing that, 1/4 inch in from the edge of the top and bottom of your binder. And then just ease with your bone folder the cardstock into the folds between the covers and the spine or the gutter. And what you really want to do is make sure that that top edge is stuck down nicely, and the same with the bottom. So really push the cardstock in, and then you get a really nice finish to the inside of your binder. Jiggle it a little bit, and then we're ready to stick the spines in. So let's mount them all together first. So we're going to start with spine number 1. This is the one that's scored at ½ inch either side. I put 2 strips of tape on here. And we're going to take spine number 2 with the spines sticking up, flatten them down, and this one wants to sit centrally and as straight as you can get it over the top of the first, and stick it down. Turn over, take your tape strips, the backing strips off, tape on the back of that one. Oops. flip it back, take spine number 3, centre it up, top and bottom. Oops, I haven't. Like that, and when you're happy with it and it's on, stick it down, turn it over. Now, I haven't straightened mine, or I haven't lined them up properly, so I'm just going to trim that off. And then take your bone folder, fold your creases, your spine sections, and just recrease them. Let's just bring that one over slightly. So. And then they'll move nicely in your book. So that one and the last one. And then take your scissors and you just want to cut from the straight edge down to the fold in each one of them, just to get rid of those corners. Do that on both sides. Like that. Sticking to the scissors. Let's get rid of those. And then take your tape off the back. Your backing strips. I always say tape. Backing strips. Fold your spines mounts up, bring your binder back in, and you want to centre this piece, lining it up with the top and bottom edge of the piece that you've already put in, and centering it between the folds in your spine, between the cover and the spine. And when you're happy, stick it down like that. And that's it. Your spine mounts are in and ready to have the pages added. I thought we'd put the cover of our album together before we start putting all the pages in. So if you've got all of your pieces ready, let's start sticking them down. And the first one, let's move you, it's not in the picture, is your nice checked paper, and that one just goes straight onto your cover. So either use tape or glue to stick it down. I'm going to use tape for this one. Oops. Which I should have put on and I haven't. So let's just whiz around. I'm just going to put one strip down the middle just to hold it onto the cover. And the corners of this piece have been stub cut with the crocodile. And that's going to be the theme all the way through the album. So let's take these backing strips off. Oops. Last one. And then centre it up between all the edges and stick it down. There isn't a closure on this album, it just opens. So that's that piece on, and now we're going to assemble the next two. And I just wanted to show you, we've got, I don't know if you've done it, but I did put a little bit of glitter and glossy accents on the words on the little piece there. And I'm going to put some glitter, I wanted to show you how to do that, or my quick way of doing it, around the edges of the pink paper as well, before we stick all the bits down. And a quick way just to add a hint of glitter rather than a whole ton of it is just on a piece of card or chipboard, put a run of glue and then make yourself a little trough that's got your glitter in, and you literally just dab the side of the paper in the glue and then just take it through the trough with the glitter in, and you get a really nice fine glittery edge, and it dries really quickly. So let's go around and do all of those edges. And the glitter I'm using is the Glamour Dust, and it's just the clear Glamour Dust. It's a really fine glitter with a nice sparkle. And really that dries incredibly quickly. So I'm going to turn it over, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue around this one to stick it down, and it's going to go onto the large blue mat. It's a really nice subtle glitter and it goes with everything. So don't forget to put a little bit of glue over the centre as well, and that holds your paper down. And then line it up on your blue mat, centre it up, and stick it down like that. I didn't put glitter on the little corners, I've just gone around the paper edges. And then that one's ready to go onto our album. So flip over and glue or tape on the back. Come on, glue. Doesn't need much. Let's bring the cover back in. And centre it up. You can follow the line in the pattern. It's a really good guide for getting it straight. Just make sure that it's nicely stuck down. I'm just keeping my fingers away from that glitter. So that's our centrepiece on. I've kept the cover quite simple. We can get really, really fussy, can't we, with Graphic 45, but I've kept it to a minimum, really. The next thing to do is to put your little picture onto the, I've distressed the edges of this little mat just to give some texture around the picture. So let's stick our little picture down. Like that. Again, centre it up, stick it down firmly. If you wanted to add glitter around this one, you could as well. And then flip it over and stick on your two chipboard pieces, or your offcuts of chipboard. I use chipboard because it's cheaper than using foam pads. And I have tons and tons of chipboard offcuts. Let's stick that one. So it's a great way of using them up. And nobody will see that. And then that one goes onto the larger photo mat. So centre it up and stick it down. And also, because we're using the cut up chipboard piece, we needed to have the same height for the centrepiece so that we can tuck the ends of the chipboard frame underneath. So centre him up like that. So that one's done. And then let's take our chipboard piece. Now I've lost a blue. Where's that gone? I've lost my blue paper. Can't be far away. Let's stick this one down and then I'll go find it. So on the back of you've cut your chipboard frame in half, and on the back you just want to put a little bit of glue and then stick your offcut of paper in place. You don't have to be too particular about lining up these bottom edges, because that then gets tucked just under there, in between the top and the bottom mat. That's easier said than done. That's it. And then what you want to do is centre it up between the two edges. So I'm going to bring it out a little bit so that the ends are just hiding, and stick it down. Like that. And now I do need to find my piece of paper, so just hold on a minute. Right, we've got it. So, top tip, don't put your glue on the chipboard, put it on your paper, and then put the chipboard frame over the top. And then just on that bottom edge, just put a trail of glue across and slide it in between the two mats at the bottom so that they line up, and stick it down. And then this little piece just sits at the bottom and it just follows that oval shape. Now I'm going to use just an offcut of chipboard underneath it, but you could use foam tape or foam pads as the instructions said. And you just put them at the bottom edge of your chipboard oval, and then a little bit of glue on there, a little bit of glue on there, and position it so that you can see some of the frame at the bottom. So about 1/4 inch up, and press it down. And then you've got all of your layers level and it's ready to go onto our cover. So let's bring the cover back in. You mustn't forget those corners. And it just sits nice and central like that on the cover. So again, you could put it down, stick it down with tape or glue, but just put your tape or glue all over the back. Whoops, something's fallen off. It's a good idea to leave it to dry before you try picking it up. And centre it up, stick it down. Like that. Let's put my oval back on. And then you could use a glue dot to put your little bow on, but I'm just going to use a little bit of the glue, a little bow at the top, and then our little corners just go on the blue checked paper. And again, if you want to put glitter around them, then do. And bring them in about 1/4 inch. And get them straight. So glue all over the back of them. Right to the point as well, because it'll be the point that will curl up. Oh, I've put glue on the wrong side of that one. Let's get another one. I cut them out of the offcuts, and it had the point of sale piece at the bottom. You could emboss these if you wanted to and give them some detail, but I'm not, I'm just putting the plain cardstock ones on. Top. Last one. And that's it. That's our cover finished. So now we're ready to move on. The pages, I thought we were going to put all the pages in together, but we're going to build them up, as the instructions say, one by one, because they're all going to be different. So the next video will be the inside cover and page 1. So I'll see you back then.